Welcome to another episode of Women in Focus. Our woman in focus today is an amazing artist. I've been following her for now about 4 or 5 years. Really didn't know who she was, but I was very fascinated by the type of drawing that she's doing, and her name is Chouhan. And when I found out who she is, I said I want to meet her right away, and she agreed to be our woman in focus today. Meet the one and only Chouhan. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Sushma ji.
Well, what a lovely, beautiful surprise that I know your dad for years. Burnaby person.
Yeah.
The Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
and when I found out that I can talk to this young woman.
Have my dad's number, I'm sure. Yeah.
I called him right away. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Yeah.
Good. So was it a surprise when I called you that I wanted to interview you?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe it just because, you know, like many others, I grew up watching your show. I remember when you interviewed like Amir Khan on your show, and I was like, that's so cool when I was a kid. And to think that I'm here today, I can't really believe it.
It was in this same studio.
Yeah, my dad was telling me. Yeah.
Anu, your artwork is amazing.
Thank you.
How did you get into it?
I think I don't really remember because it's something I always did ever since I was a kid. One of my earliest memories is just like sitting on the kitchen table and just like drawing little weird people. Like I always loved drawing people, especially faces, especially girls. Like I love drawing princesses, and I feel like that kind of makes sense because I draw a lot of women still, right?
You do. I was going to ask you, because which is the most difficult thing in doing your drawing?
Feet.
Feet?
I can't draw feet.
Really?
No, feet and cars. I feel like there are certain things that every artist struggles with.
Yeah.
And it's different for everybody. I think that those are just two things I never really drew much, but now, like, we'll talk about this in a bit, I'm working on more comics that require, you know, different angles, different scenes, and I had to kind of learn how to draw all these things.
So commercially you're doing that?
Yes.
Isn't that just beautiful?
Yeah.
All right, so let's take you back to your childhood. Mm-hmm. You were born here in Burnaby?
Surrey.
Surrey?
Yeah.
So your mom and dad lived in Surrey in those days?
Yeah, back in the day. When I was around a year old, we actually moved to Victoria.
Okay.
And we lived there till I was like 5. But we went back and forth a lot because like my grandparents lived in Surrey, like my cousins were all here.
Right.
So on the weekends we'd be going back and forth a lot. It wasn't until I was 13 that we moved to Burnaby.
And how was it, the transition from, you know, Victoria to Burnaby?
It was fine, you know, like everything feels way more serious than it actually is when you're a kid. So
you look back at you as a 10, 12, 13-year-old and you think, that was nothing.
Yeah, I was really nervous, like as a kid back in those days. Like I remember I got so stressed out when I was about to start high school in Burnaby, and I was like, what was I even worried about? I made like 5 friends on the first day of school, so it was fine.
Now, when you started drawing, and then do you remember the time that you really got serious about your drawing?
It was definitely during elementary school, because I used to draw every day, like even in my notes at school, like in the margins I'd be drawing, and my teachers would tell me like, oh, you're so good at art, you're so good at art. I remember like I won, when we used to have the Vancouver Grizzlies team here, they had an art contest, and I remember I sent a drawing and they liked it, and then I won some contest. Since then I was like, wow, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life. But I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew I wanted to do something creative as my career. So
once you finished your high school, did mom and dad expect you to go into university and do anything?
Well, you know my dad, right? He political guy, like he's very, you know, socially, like a lot of social activism. My sister followed in his footsteps in that way, and he really wanted me to be a lawyer. Like that was his dream for me, and I kind of entertained that idea when I was in grade 12, when I was getting, or grade 11, grade 12, when I was applying to university. I was like, well, maybe I can go to political science and do that. But I just knew that that wasn't for me.
You.
That wasn't me. I'd be miserable, right? So I started to think about how I could apply that desire to do something creative, but like, okay, what does that mean in terms of getting a job?
Right.
So that's when I started doing a bit more research about where that would take me.
And
I mean, it's like my career path has been all over the place. Like
right.
I feel like every like few years, like my goals changed in terms of what I wanted to do. But I did appease my parents in the sense that I went to SFU, I got a degree, it was in media arts.
Right.
But then after I graduated, I was like, you know what, I wanted to keep going to school. And then I went to animation school at Capilano, and I did their 2-year commercial animation program.
Wow, that's fantastic.
My dad was very stressed out during this entire period.
Anu, I want to talk about you as a child growing up, and how many in your family?
Just me and my sister.
Oh, that's
yeah, my older sister.
Older sister, so you're younger.
Yeah, I'm the
and
baby.
Spoiled a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay with admitting that now.
That. Okay. We are talking to Anu Chouhan. We'll take a short commercial break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Our Woman in Focus today is Anu Chouhan. You've got an Instagram page called Animation.
Yes.
So that is, as far as your drawing is concerned.
Yeah.
I saw a beautiful drawing with a young woman, and it is Zelda.
Oh yeah, Princess Zelda.
Princess Zelda.
Yeah.
With pointy ears.
With pointy ears.
So Princess Zelda wasn't Spock's sister, was she?
No, she's from The Legend of Zelda, which is a video game.
So does she have ears like that?
She does.
Or is that your own imagination?
No, that's her. She does not look anything like that in the video game, but it's I can't believe I'm talking about The Legend of Zelda with you. That's like one of those things that I've held on to since I was a child. Like,
really?
I loved video games when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I loved Nintendo games. That's something me and my friends and my cousins, my sister and I bonded over that game.
Wow.
And you know, I just like wanted to draw my own interpretation of this princess who I always thought was so beautiful. But I never saw myself in a lot of those characters, but not just games, like in cartoons as well. Looking back, like how many South Asian characters were there in my favorite cartoons, right?
Right.
There weren't. So now that, I have, like I've worked on this skill of mine, and I'm working in this industry, I wanted to, that's why I started my page, by the way. It was because I wanted to draw personal art that spoke to me, that I wasn't necessarily able to work on in my studio work.
Now, let's talk about your studio work. Mm-hmm. Are you with a commercial studio, and what are you doing?
I was. So after I graduated from Capilano, I right away, right when I graduated, I had landed a job at DHX Media, which is now they're known as Wild Brain Entertainment, I believe. Right. They're in Vancouver. So that's an animation studio locally. They have branches in other cities as well, but I got a job there working in their mobile game department. Okay. They made games based on their cartoons.
All right.
And so I was an artist there for about 2 years almost.
And how was that?
That was, as my first job, I couldn't believe, like, I got a job doing what I loved, right? Or like related to my interests, right? So that was really good as a first job. Definitely maybe not a place to stay, but it was a good kind of to get my feet wet and like get a sense of what it's like to work at a studio.
And what are you doing now?
So flash forward to now, I've worked at another studio since then. I'm actually working as a freelancer from home right now. Okay. I started doing that a little before the pandemic happened, so that wasn't a great time. I was like, what have I done? I couldn't believe, like at the time, I was just like, why did I quit? I could have had a job right now. Yeah. But you know what? Things work in mysterious ways. I ended up finding a literary agent, or she found me during that whole pandemic time, or right before it hit. And flash forward to now, I'm working on some books, some kids' books. I'm illustrating them.
Wow. What about gaming is different. Then there is animation in movies.
Yes.
And then there is art.
Yeah.
So these are three different fields. You've worked in all three of them.
I feel like art is like, it's kind of like a diagram. So here's art.
Yes.
And then it branches out.
Yes.
Right? Because art is just like a general way of encompassing so many different things. Like when people say, oh, Anu's an artist, but that could mean anything.
Anything,
right?
That's right.
So I guess when people ask me, I'm an illustrator and I'm a color designer and a character designer.
Oh, okay.
Because those are the main focuses of my career.
And then there are three different aspects.
Three
of
different
art.
aspects, yes, yes.
And then there is the cartoons, which is a totally different branch.
Yeah, I mean, even like game design is different, animation design is different for shows and movies. Like the type of animation you do for shows, type of animation for movies are very different things. I actually only worked on my very first show project, animated show, last fall with Netflix Animation. I did some freelance work for them. And that was my first time working on a series, actually.
And how was that?
That was really cool.
Really?
I was so happy to have that experience. Like, it was just a small little contract, but I really feel like I was like, this is what, when I think about like the next 5 years, like this is something that I want to pursue. I really like working in like that type of projects.
So when you look at animation from the time when Walt Disney was doing animation and then started making those movies,
Yeah.
and to today,
Yeah.
where they are so realistic, they are not 2D.
It's 3D.
It's
Yeah.
3D now, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
And the expression on the face and the movement of the eyes or face or even a muscle in your face, you can now you
Yeah.
have the ability to draw all that.
Yeah, yeah. Requires two different educations. So like,
Right.
I mean, my education was in 2D.
Right.
But for example, the show that I worked on is 3D, but what I did was 2D because I was helping them with the design work, which is
Right.
like the pre-production.
Would you like to go into 3D?
I don't know.
Is it a totally different ball game?
It's a totally different ball game, and I kind of dabbled in it in the past. Like when I was
Yeah.
in school, I took a couple of courses in 3D. I don't want to say no because I feel like maybe, right?
Yeah.
I might one day.
Right.
Right now, my focus is still on 2D and where, like, how I can take that into like and grow it as a part of my career.
Okay, so for those, and me as well, who are not that savvy in the 2D, 1D, 2D, 3D, can you decipher that for us?
Well, I mean, that's kind of like that's a lot to talk about because I mean, the main thing is that 2D is flat. It's
Right.
like a flat plane.
Right.
And so for example, if I draw a 2D character on a piece of paper, you can't see her from all angles. It's just the angle I drew her on. But with 3D, it's like a model that you can turn around in any direction.
Right.
Right.
So if I have this, and I want to see that.
Yeah, then I
it'll
would
have-
turn.
yeah.
You'd be able to turn me around. But if I'm just like a flat 2D character, I'd have to draw that character from all the different angles.
Wow, isn't that amazing? So for that you have to have a camera.
Yeah, and also like it's a very hard skill set to learn. Like 2D illustration and character design, like I said, doing character turnarounds,
Right.
making sure the character looks like the same person from each angle.
Wow.
It's hard work, right?
It is.
So it does take a lot of practice.
We are talking to an animator. Her name is Anu Chouhan. We'll take a short commercial break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Anu Chouhan is our Woman in Focus today. She has a company called Animation and she does a lot of animation with that. Now you have started designing for books.
Yes.
So you're doing illustration for a
Yes.
book. That's the right word.
Yes.
Illustration for a book.
Right.
How did you come across that?
So when I was working, this is going back a little bit. So when I
Yes.
was working at those animation studios that I talked about previously, the projects that I would work on, like I kind of briefly touched on, they didn't really speak to me in the sense that not to sound ungrateful for the job, I was more than happy to do it, but the work I was doing at work didn't reflect what I loved to draw personally. So that's why I started my page animation, because I love drawing South Asian women. I love drawing characters that look like me and speak to other girls, younger girls and women my age. And that, I'm so happy that like people around the world really resonated with that, right? So I really found a lot of joy creating artwork that was in my own style, because a lot of times at studios you have to apply the studio style of drawing.
That's right. They want you to draw a certain thing, and then that is the mold that you're given to you.
Yes. So I wanted to, you know, have a way to be kind of more free with what I do. And so I started drawing online, and the more I started sharing my work online, the more people it reached. And it was the year before, 2019, that's when I kind of started to feel like, you know what, I'd love to illustrate a kid's book. I'd love to illustrate a kid's book specifically with brown kids, with South Asian kids, right? South Asian children. And that was something that I was thinking of doing, so I started researching, and a lot of people said, you need an agent. You need a literary agent because they know all the publishers and they'll get you those projects. Because I wanted to work on books that would reach a lot of people. Right? So I applied to a bunch of literary agencies, rejected all across the board.
Really?
Yep. That's the other thing. In my career, there's a lot of rejection.
Wow.
Right? And that's something you have to get used to. So with every rejection though, it kind of hurts, right? I'm just like, why don't people like my art? Like, shouldn't they be happy? I'm trying to do something more diverse. Like, I'm trying to get my art out there. But you know what? Everyone has their own style that they're looking for, their own subject matter. And I just wasn't finding the right person. But then it was flash forward to like right at the beginning of 2020, my agent found me on Twitter. Her name is Tao. She's wonderful. And I was looking her up. She represents so many diverse creatives.
Wow.
Like on her team. And I was so happy and honored that she wanted to represent me. And it was through her that I've been able to work on the books that I'm currently working on.
Isn't that just a beautiful story? And I also believe that there's the right time and the right place. And the right moment that you get what you are looking for. And if you put that out in the universe makes every effort to make your dream come true.
That's right. I feel like everything happens for a reason, when it happens for a reason. One thing I do want to say, because I know a lot of people always ask, like, oh, you know, do you have any advice? Or like, what should I do if I want to follow like your career path? It is really hard. It is. And it's so easy to compare yourself to other people's success and what other people are doing. But now flash forward to now, like where I feel like in the past year alone, I've had all these amazing experiences, right? And so it's very easy to like feel dejected and feel like question yourself whether or not you made the right decision. But if you truly feel like you really want to do this, you really want to achieve this, it'll happen. It's just a matter of time. And that's something, I'm stubborn in that way. I never stopped. I never gave up, right? And I had a lot of self-confidence issues in my skills in the past. That might have slowed me down, but that was also a lot of growing that I had to do. And I feel like that really helped with what I'm doing now. It made me into the person I am now. And I have so much more confidence than I did back then. If I could go back and like hug my past self and be like, it's okay, you'll be fine. Just keep working.
It's so nice. Now I talked about the Princess Zelda. What is your, I read that you were saying one of the artwork that you put out, and you said if anybody buys it, the money will be donated to Khalsa Aid.
Yes.
Which is your most favorite? You must have, each and every drawing that you do must be your favorite.
Yeah, I don't think I can answer that question just because there's a bit of myself in all of my drawings. And when I look back in the past few years, I was going through different things. I was experiencing different things when I drew each one. So they're all from different times in my life. I will say, I really like how much my art has evolved to where it is right now.
Beautiful.
So I'm very happy with the work that I'm able to create right now. But you know, as an artist, like life's a marathon, right? Like you just keep going. My art's probably going to look way different in a few years.
Yes, as you grow,
Yeah.
your art will grow with you,
Yeah.
won't it?
Yes.
Now, this is a silly question, but I have to ask you. All our gods and goddesses, I know that you are Sikh, and but you've looked at Hindu goddesses,
Yes.
like Lakshmi and Durga and Kali and all that. But when you look at all their pictures or all the murtiyan, they're all made out of marble, so they're very fair in complexion, although we are not fair in complexion. You are, but I'm not. But you know, South Asians are not.
Not everyone's the same.
Not everyone is the same.
Yeah.
How do you feel like drawing a Durga with a darker complexion?
I've done that.
You've done that?
I've done that. A few years ago, I was asked by somebody, it was part of an organization, it was called the Dark Skin Goddess Project.
Wow.
And she wanted to, I'll show you after.
Yes. No, we'll show it on the program.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
She wanted to, she reached out to me and a few others to create recreations of the Devis in darker skin, because they're most, like very often fair-skinned. Even not just like in the murtiyan, but even in paintings. So, and I think that's why like a lot of gods, like Krishna is blue-skinned, but they meant that it's because of his skin tone. They didn't want to draw him darker. So they said that it's fine to draw darker skinned gods and goddesses. So that was actually really cool. And I drew that quite a few years ago. I'd love to do like a updated version.
Updated version?
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, Anu, you've just started your life. And you've just started your, I mean, I'm just saying, just started. It's just like you are blossoming. And you will be doing so many different things. And it would be so nice to follow your career. And I encourage everybody to follow Animation on Instagram. Are you on Facebook?
I am, as Animation as well. I don't update that much on my Facebook. I should. I'm pretty active on Twitter as well.
Oh, good. Okay.
Animation Art, because Animation was already taken by somebody.
Animation Art.
Yes.
On Twitter and Animation on Instagram.
Yes.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for accepting to be interviewed in Women in Focus.
That's my honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Anu has been our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back.